Let's go live to HSBC Chief Economist Paul Bloxham. Paul, good to see you. The economy is in focus at the moment. There's a number of factors over Christmas that has perhaps made it look a little shaky. Give us an overall picture of the health of our economy at the moment as you see it.
Well, the economic indicators that we've gotten over the past couple of months actually are tracking in a pretty good fashion. The unemployment rate ticked to a 9-month low in December of 5.1%. And the retail numbers looked a bit better for November. So in general, the economic indicators, although they're a little bit dated, obviously, actually have a reasonable amount of momentum. There's also some signs that the RBA's cuts are feeding through to the housing market. The challenge is, of course, we've had two big shocks that have economic implications. The one is the bushfires and the other is coronavirus. So, and it's quite uncertain as to exactly what impact those two events will have on the economic indicators. All of this is stuff that the Reserve Bank, which meets tomorrow, of course, is going to have to try to take into account in its first decision for the year.
It will be difficult for the RBA to take it into account, won't it? Because the coronavirus crisis is ongoing. You don't know when it will end. The bushfire crisis is probably a little bit more predictable at this point. Also, in the last week, we've had the Federal Reserve keep rates on hold in the US. I guess all those factors, including that last one I mentioned, will play into the board's thinking.
Well, that's right. So our view is the RBA is likely to be on hold tomorrow. We think they're going to sit still. And we think that's going to reflect, firstly, as you say, the fact that global interest rates are not falling. The Fed has actually been steady and is talking about the US economy doing reasonably well. The second is going to be that the domestic indicators in Australia are still looking quite good. The RBA, keep in mind, has just delivered 75 basis points worth of easing last year between June and October. It's having an effect on the housing market. As I say, the labour market is looking better. The unemployment rate's at a 9-month low. And although they've got those two big events where they're going to be going through and trying to work out what's going on, it's still too early to really know what effect they're going to have on the economy. It's also worth keeping in mind that, firstly, the Aussie dollar is coming down, which is going to help protect us from some of those shocks, particularly the coronavirus shock. And the appropriate response to the bushfires is certainly more fiscal spending than it is monetary policy. Fiscal spending can be targeted, and it can be, and that can provide support for the economy. It's the sort of shock where fiscal policy ought to play a bigger role.
OK, just finally, of course, we're getting closer to budget time. The RBA, well, the government will be keeping a very close eye on what the RBA does. We've seen in recent times the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, not so much talk about a surplus, but a balanced budget. Is that surplus at risk, or is there a bit of an expectation management going on there, do you think?
Oh, I think it's certainly at risk. I think it almost ought to be at risk. I think that we really should be more focused on fiscal policy providing support for growth, particularly in the face of the sorts of shocks that we've seen over the summer. A budget surplus is a good thing to have, but of course having a strong budget position, the idea of that is so that it can be used to provide support for the economy when required. And given the nature of the shocks we're seeing and the downside risks they create, it seems likely that now is the time that we ought to be seeing that support come through.
You are not the only one to say that, Paul Bloxham. It's good to see you this morning. Good to have you back on First Edition. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.